Captain Lisa Morgan stood on the bridge of the research vessel Starfall and watched the massive asteroid field spinning slowly before them. The rocks were old, older than most things in this part of space. Her crew had been out here for 3 months looking for mineral deposits, but what they found was something nobody expected. Dr. Amy Carter pushed her glasses up her nose and stared at the readings on her screen. The scanner was picking up something strange inside one of the larger asteroids. It was not natural rock or metal. The patterns looked like they were made by someone, built by hands or tools that knew what they were doing. "Captain, you need to see this," Amy said. Her voice was quiet but excited. "There is a structure inside that asteroid. It is huge and it is definitely not natural." Lisa walked over to look at the data. The asteroid was nearly 2 miles wide, but hidden inside was something that looked like a building or a machine. The scanner could not tell them much more from this distance, but the readings were clear. Someone had built something and hidden it inside solid rock. "How old do you think it is?" Lisa asked. Amy checked her readings again. "The rock around it is at least 4 million years old. Maybe older. But the structure inside, that could be even older than the asteroid itself." Commander Kate Phillips looked up from her station. She was in charge of keeping the ship safe, and her job was to worry about dangers. "Captain, we should be careful. We do not know who built this or why they hid it." Lisa nodded. Kate was right to be careful, but this was the kind of discovery that could change everything they knew about space and the beings who lived in it. "Amy, can we get closer? Can we scan it better?" "Yes, but we will need to move very slowly. The asteroid field is thick here and the rocks are moving in strange patterns." Lisa made her decision. "Take us in. Nice and slow. I want to know what is inside that rock." The Starfall moved carefully through the asteroid field. The pilot was good at her job, and she guided the ship between the floating rocks like she was dancing. As they got closer, the scanners picked up more details about the hidden structure. Amy was getting more excited with each new reading. "Captain, this thing is massive. It goes almost all the way through the asteroid, and there are chambers, lots of them. It looks like some kind of data storage facility." "Data storage?" Kate asked. "You mean like a computer?" "Something like that, but much more advanced than anything we have ever seen. The energy patterns suggest it might still be working." Lisa felt a chill run down her back. Something that had been working for millions of years, hidden in an asteroid where nobody would find it. "Can we get inside?" Amy studied her screens. "There is what looks like a docking bay on the dark side of the asteroid. It is hidden from most angles, but our scanners can see it now that we are close." "Take us there," Lisa ordered. The ship moved around the asteroid and found the hidden opening. It was clearly artificial, carved into the rock with perfect smooth edges. The opening was just the right size for a ship like theirs, as if it had been made for visitors. "That is too much of a coincidence," Kate said. "It is almost like they were expecting someone like us." Lisa did not like coincidences either, but they had come too far to turn back now. "Amy, scan for any signs of life or active weapons." "Nothing dangerous that I can detect. The structure is definitely active, but it seems to be in some kind of waiting mode." They docked with the asteroid and prepared to go inside. Lisa picked a small team to explore with her. Amy would come to study whatever they found. Kate would come to keep them safe. Dr. Betty Clark would come because she was good at understanding alien technology. The airlock opened, and they stepped into a corridor that was clearly not human. The walls were smooth and curved in ways that human builders would not choose. The air was breathable, which was strange since the structure had been sealed for so long. Lights came on as they walked, showing them the way forward. "The lights are responding to our presence," Betty said. "This place knows we are here." They followed the corridor deeper into the structure. The walls were covered with symbols and pictures that looked like some kind of writing, but not like any language they had ever seen. Amy was taking pictures of everything, trying to record as much as possible. The corridor opened into a huge chamber filled with tall columns of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Each crystal seemed to contain moving images, like watching a movie through colored glass. "This is it," Amy whispered. "This is a library, a record of something." Betty walked up to one of the crystals and held her scanner near it. "The crystal is responding to the scanner. I think it wants to show us something." The crystal began to glow brighter, and suddenly the air above it filled with pictures made of light. They could see alien beings that looked like tall, graceful people with long limbs and large eyes. The aliens were building cities and ships, exploring space, and learning about the universe. "These must be the people who built this place," Lisa said. Amy was already working on her translation device, trying to understand the symbols that appeared with the images. "The writing is complex, but I think I can figure some of it out. These beings called themselves the Valix. The images showed the Valix at the height of their civilization. They had technology that seemed like magic, ships that could cross the galaxy in days, and cities that floated in space without any visible support. They had mapped every star and planet in their part of the universe. But then the images changed. The Valix began to look worried and afraid. They were looking over their shoulders, scanning empty space, as if they expected to find something watching them. The symbols that appeared now spoke of fear and mystery. They were afraid of something, Amy said as she worked on translating more of the text. Something they called the First Watchers. Kate stepped closer. Watchers? What were they watching for? Amy continued reading the alien text. According to this, the First Watchers were beings that observed civilizations from the shadows. The Valix knew they were being watched, but they never found out who was doing it or why. The images showed the Valix becoming more and more paranoid. They built weapons and defenses against an enemy they could not see. They searched every corner of space but found nothing. And then, suddenly, they were gone. The last images showed empty cities and abandoned ships drifting in space. Lisa felt that chill again. What happened to them? The record ends there, Amy said. But there is something else. Look at this star chart. The crystal showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of stars marked with different symbols. Amy compared it with their own star charts, and her face went pale. Captain, this map matches our astronomical data perfectly. Every star, every planet, everything is exactly where we know it should be. That is good, Kate said. It means their information was accurate. No, you do not understand, Amy said. Her voice was shaking now. Look at this star here, she pointed to a yellow star marked with special symbols that were different from all the others. Kate looked at the coordinates and checked them against their navigation system. That is Earth, Kate said quietly. That is our home system. Lisa looked at the symbols around Earth's star. They were more complex than the others, written in lines that seemed to move and change as she watched them. Amy, what do those symbols mean? Amy worked frantically with her translation device. When she looked up, her face was white with shock. Captain, according to this, Earth is marked as the origin point of the Watchers. The news from the starfall reached Earth 3 days later, and within hours, it was spreading across every human colony and space station in the galaxy. Captain Lisa Morgan had sent her report through quantum communication channels that could not be intercepted, but the information was too important to keep secret for long. On the orbital platform above Mars, Commander Susan Wright read the report twice before she believed what she was seeing. Earth marked as the origin point of mysterious Watchers that had terrified an ancient alien race. It sounded like something from a science fiction story, but the evidence was right there in the translated Valix records. The report reached the Galactic Council on the same day, and the reaction from the alien ambassadors was immediate and intense. Ambassador Zyra 4 of the Neth Collective stood in the council chamber, her crystalline body reflecting the lights in sharp patterns that showed her agitation. This explains much that we have wondered about for generations, she said, her voice creating musical tones that the translation system converted to words. My people have stories, old stories from before we reached the stars. We spoke of beings who watched from the void before stars learned to shine. The council chamber fell silent. Representatives from a dozen different species looked at each, other with expressions that ranged from curiosity to growing fear. The human ambassador, a woman named Rebecca Stone, sat quietly and listened as more aliens began to speak. The Corvan Empire has similar legends, growled Ambassador Threx, his reptilian features showing the stress marks that appeared when his species was worried. Ancient tales of invisible observers who knew our thoughts before we thought them, back On the research station, Dr. Amy Carter was working around the clock to translate more of the Valix records. Professor Helen Davis had arrived from Earth to help with the linguistic analysis, and together they were uncovering information that made the mystery deeper with every new discovery. "Helen, look at this section," Amy said, pointing to a holographic display filled with alien symbols. The Valix did not just know about the Watchers. They tried to study them, tried to understand what they were and where they came from. Helen adjusted her translation algorithm and read the new text as it appeared. In English, according to this, the Watchers were not originally from this galaxy. They came from somewhere else, somewhere the Valix could not reach or even imagine. But that is not the strangest part, Amy said. Look at this biological data. The crystal display showed genetic information, DNA patterns that looked familiar despite being millions of years old. Helen compared the patterns to her database of known species and found something that made her hands shake. Amy, this genetic pattern, it matches human DNA almost perfectly. Not exactly the same, but close enough to suggest a common origin. How is that possible? Amy asked. Humans evolved on Earth. We have fossil records. We know our evolutionary history. Helen was quiet for a long moment, reading more of the Valix data. What if we did not evolve naturally? What if we were placed on Earth by someone else? Meanwhile, on Earth, Agent Maria Santos of Human Intelligence was discovering that several alien governments had been secretly monitoring human settlements for decades. The aliens had not been planning an invasion or studying human weaknesses. They had been watching humans because they were afraid. Maria sat in a secure briefing room with Director Nancy Foster, reviewing intercepted alien communications that painted a picture of widespread concern about human expansion through the galaxy. The Ethereal Syndicate has been tracking every human colony ship for the past 50 years, Maria said, reading from a translated report. They were not trying to stop us. They were trying to predict where we would go next. Why would they care where we expand? Nancy asked. Because we always seem to show up at exactly the right place at the right time. Look at this pattern. Maria brought up a galactic map showing human colonies and the major events that had happened near them. The colony on Kepler 442b had been established just 2 years before a massive asteroid threatened the nearby alien world of Zephyr Prime. Human miners had deflected the asteroid, saving millions of alien lives. The research station near Proxima Centauri had detected and prevented a solar flare that would have destroyed 3 alien colonies. It could be coincidence, Nancy said, but her voice suggested she did not believe it. There are 47 similar incidents in the past century, Maria said. Humans arriving somewhere just in time to prevent a disaster or solve a problem that the aliens did not even know existed yet. The aliens think we have been watching them and guiding events from behind the scenes. Back on the research station, Dr. Betty Clark was making her own disturbing discovery. She had been studying the quantum patterns in the Valix crystals when she noticed something odd about the way human brains responded to the alien technology. Amy, I need you to look at something, Betty said. I have been scanning our team members while they work with the Valix crystals, and the results are strange. She showed Amy the brain scans on her display. When you or Helen or anyone else gets near the crystals, your brain activity changes. Specifically, areas that we thought were unused or dormant become active. What kind of areas? Amy asked. Quantum processing centers, parts of the brain that seem designed to handle information across vast distances of space and time, the same kind of quantum patterns that the crystals use for data storage. Amy stared at the scans. You are saying our brains are naturally compatible with this alien technology? Not just compatible, I think human brains were designed to work with this kind of quantum information system. It is like we have built-in hardware for processing galactic-scale data. The implications were staggering. If human brains contained quantum structures that matched alien technology from millions of years ago, then humans were not what they appeared to be. They were something else, something that had been hidden even from themselves. Helen discovered more evidence in the deeper Valix records. The aliens had not just been afraid of the Watchers, they had been grateful to them. The Watchers had prevented wars, stopped natural disasters, and guided the development of younger civilizations throughout the galaxy. The Watchers were protectors, Helen told Amy. They did not just observe. They acted when they needed to, always from the shadows, always without revealing themselves. But why hide? Amy asked. If they were helping, why not make contact? Because direct contact changes the natural development of a civilization. The Watchers believed that species needed to grow and learn on their own, with only subtle guidance when absolutely necessary. The final piece of the puzzle came when Amy found the Valix records about Earth itself. The aliens had visited the solar system long ago, back when humans were still primitive hunters living in caves. What they found had terrified them. According to this, the Valix detected quantum signatures on Earth that matched the Watchers, Amy said. But the signatures were coming from the primitive humans, not from some advanced alien visitors. The humans were the Watchers? Helen asked. Not the primitive humans, but something in human genetics, something that would not become active until humans developed space travel and began exploring the galaxy. The Valix had realized that humans were not just another primitive species, they were the descendants or successors of the original Watchers, carrying dormant abilities that would eventually awaken. The aliens had left Earth alone, hoping that human development would follow a different path. But now humans were in space, building colonies and exploring the galaxy, and strange things were starting to happen. Human intuition was proving unnaturally accurate. Human explorers were finding things they should not have been able to find. Human diplomats were preventing conflicts with almost supernatural skill. Captain Lisa Morgan received a priority message from Earth while she was still studying the alien records. The message was from Admiral Rebecca Stone, asking her to return to Earth immediately with all the Valix data. Captain, Amy said as they prepared to leave the asteroid, what do you think this means for humanity? Lisa looked at the crystal data storage one last time before they sealed the airlock. I think it means we are about to find out who we really are, and I am not sure we are going to like the answer. As the Starfall departed the asteroid field, quantum sensors throughout the galaxy detected a subtle change in human brain patterns. On every human colony and space station, people began having dreams about alien worlds they had never seen and feeling drawn to explore regions of space that no human had ever visited. The awakening had begun. Lieutenant Colonel Susan Wright woke up on Mars with memories that were not her own. She had been dreaming about a world with purple skies and silver trees, a place where tall beings with 6 arms built cities that floated on clouds of light. The dream felt more real than the metal walls of her quarters on the Mars research station. Susan was not the only one. All across the human colonies, people were reporting similar experiences. Dreams of alien worlds, visions of species they had never encountered, and strange feelings that they needed to be somewhere else in the galaxy. Dr. Betty Clark had arrived on Mars 2 days after the Starfall returned to Earth, and she was studying the phenomenon with growing alarm. Her portable brain scanner showed that the quantum structures in human minds were activating at an accelerating rate. Susan, I need you to describe the dream again, Betty said, watching the readings on her equipment. It was not like a normal dream, Susan replied. I could feel the gravity of that world, smell the air, hear the sounds of their technology. I knew things about those beings, their history, their culture, things that nobody could have taught me. Betty checked her readings. While you were describing the dream, your brain was processing quantum information at levels we have never seen before. It is like you were actually connected to that alien world. Similar reports were coming from every human settlement. On the Ya mining colony near Vega, workers were having visions of underground cities filled with creatures that looked like living crystals. On the research station orbiting Kepler 452b, scientists were dreaming about aquatic beings who built their homes in the depths of methane seas. Captain Lisa Morgan had been called to a meeting on Earth with the highest levels of human government. The conference room was filled with admirals, scientists, and intelligence officials who all looked like they had not slept in days. Captain, we need to understand what is happening to our people, said Admiral Rebecca Stone. These dreams and visions are not random. They correspond to real locations in space, real alien civilizations that our long-range scouts have never encountered. Dr. Amy Carter was there too, still working on translating the Valix records. The pattern is becoming clear, she said. Every human settlement is receiving information about the nearest alien civilizations, even ones we did not know existed. How is that possible? Asked General Claire Adams, the head of Colonial Defense. Amy pulled up a holographic display of the galaxy. According to the Valix records, the original Watchers created a quantum information network that spans the entire galaxy. Every world with intelligent life is connected to this network, but only beings with the right kind of consciousness can access it. And humans have that consciousness? Rebecca asked. We are developing it. The Valix predicted this would happen when humans reached a certain level of technological and social development. They called it the Awakening. Back on Mars, Susan Wright was experiencing something that went beyond dreams. She was sitting in the observation deck, watching the red landscape, when suddenly she could see through the eyes of someone else, an alien, being standing on a world of ice and steam, looking up at unfamiliar stars. The being was not human, but Susan could understand its thoughts and feelings. It was worried about something approaching its world from deep space, something that threatened all life on the planet. Susan knew without being told that this world was 300 light-years away, in a direction that human ships had never explored. Betty, something is wrong, Susan said, calling the scientist over. I am seeing a world in danger. There is something coming that will destroy all life there unless someone helps them. Betty scanned Susan's brain again and found quantum activity unlike anything she had ever recorded. Susan, your consciousness is connected to that alien being. You are sharing their awareness across impossible distances. Similar incidents were happening throughout human space. On the colony ship Meridian, Captain Nancy Foster suddenly knew that a nearby star was about to go supernova, threatening 2 alien civilizations that lived in its path. The information came to her not through any scanner or communication, but through the strange quantum awareness that was growing in her mind. The human government realized they were facing a crisis that had never been imagined. Dr. Betty Clark was brought back to Earth to head a research team studying the awakening phenomenon. What she found was that human consciousness was evolving in real time. Every human alive is developing quantum awareness capabilities, Betty told the Emergency Council. We are becoming capable of perceiving events across vast distances of space and time, but the process is not complete, and we do not fully understand what we are becoming. Amy Carter made another discovery in the Valix records that explained why the awakening was happening now. The original Watchers did not disappear, she told the Council. They evolved beyond physical existence, becoming pure consciousness that exists in the quantum realm between dimensions. You mean they are still out there? Rebecca asked. They are everywhere and nowhere. They exist as information patterns in the quantum network that connects all life in the galaxy. But they can no longer take physical action. They can only observe and guide. Guide toward what? Claire asked. Amy hesitated before answering. According to the Valix records, there is something coming from outside our galaxy, something that destroyed countless civilizations in other galaxies. The original Watchers evolved beyond physical form because they knew that only pure consciousness could survive what is approaching. But humanity is still physical, Betty pointed out. We have not evolved to that level. No, we have not. And that may be why the awakening is happening now. The galaxy needs guardians who can take physical action, not just observe from the quantum realm. The implications were staggering. Humanity was not just randomly developing psychic abilities. They were being prepared for a role that the original Watchers could no longer fulfill. Susan Wright confirmed this when she had her most vivid vision yet. She saw the edge of the galaxy where something vast and dark was approaching. It consumed stars and planets, leaving nothing but empty space in its wake. And she knew with absolute certainty that it would reach their part of the galaxy within a few years. The danger is real, Susan told Betty over the communication link from Mars. I can see it clearly now. There is something coming that will destroy everything unless we stop it. What kind of something? Betty asked. I do not know what to call it. It is not alive in any way we would recognize, but it consumes all forms of life and energy. It is like a wave of nothingness that erases everything it touches. Betty realized that the dreams and visions were not just random psychic experiences. They were a preparation system, training human consciousness to handle galactic-scale awareness and responsibility. Susan, try to connect with other humans who are having similar experiences. See if you can coordinate your perceptions. Susan focused her mind, and suddenly she could sense other human consciousnesses across the galaxy. Nancy Foster on the Meridian, Lisa Morgan back on Earth, hundreds of others who were all experiencing the same awakening. Together they could see the galaxy as a vast network of life and intelligence, all connected by quantum threads that had been invisible before. "I can feel them all," Susan said in wonder. "Every human in space, every alien civilization, every world with life on it. We are all part of the same network." Betty realized that this was what the original Watchers had become, a collective consciousness that could perceive and understand everything in the galaxy simultaneously. But humanity was developing the same awareness while remaining individual, physical beings. "You are becoming the bridge between the physical and quantum realms," Betty told Susan. "You can act in the physical world while maintaining the cosmic awareness that the original Watchers achieved." The awakening was accelerating. Human explorers were instinctively navigating to locations where their help was needed. Scientists were solving problems they had never studied before. Diplomats were preventing conflicts between alien species through insights that seemed to come from nowhere. Captain Lisa Morgan stood in the command center on Earth and watched reports coming in from across human space. Every human settlement was reporting similar phenomena. People knew things they should not know, could predict events they had no logical way to predict, and felt compelled to take actions that seemed random but always turned out to be exactly what was needed. "Admiral, I think we need to accept what we are becoming," Lisa said to Rebecca Stone. "Humanity is not just another species exploring the galaxy. We are the inheritors of the most ancient responsibility in the universe." Rebecca looked at the galactic display showing human colonies scattered across hundreds of star systems. "The responsibility to watch and protect." "More than that," Lisa said. "The responsibility to act when action is needed. The original Watchers could only observe, but we can do both. We can watch and we can fight." As if in response to her words, every human in the galaxy felt a pulse of awareness that connected them all for a brief moment. They saw through each other's eyes, felt each other's thoughts, and understood that they were no longer separate individuals, but part of something larger. The awakening was complete, but it was only the beginning. The Galactic Council chambers had never seen anything like the emergency session that convened 3 weeks after the human awakening began. Representatives from 47 different species sat in the Great Circular Hall, and for the first time in the Council's history, every single one of them was afraid. Ambassador Zira 4 of the Neth Collective stood at the center podium, her crystalline body vibrating with frequencies that indicated extreme agitation. "The humans are no longer what they appeared to be," she announced. "Our deep space monitors show quantum signature changes emanating from every human settlement. They are becoming something that our ancestors feared." Admiral Rebecca Stone sat in the human delegation area, trying to remain calm as accusation after accusation was hurled at her species. The alien governments had been monitoring human activities closely since the Valix discovery, and what they found terrified them. "The Corvan Empire presents evidence," growled Ambassador Threx, activating a holographic display that showed human colony movements over the past century. "Every human expansion has preceded major galactic events by exactly the margin needed to provide assistance. This cannot be coincidence." The display showed pattern after pattern. Human mining operations that had prevented asteroid impacts on alien worlds. Human research stations that had detected and warned about solar flares that would have wiped out alien colonies. Human diplomatic missions that had arrived just in time to prevent wars between species that had never even contacted humanity before. "The humans have been manipulating galactic events for over 100 years, Threx continued. "They have been watching us, guiding us, controlling our development without our knowledge or consent." Rebecca stood to respond. "Ambassador Threx, I can assure you that the human government was unaware of any special abilities until the recent discoveries. We have not been intentionally manipulating anything." "Then how do you explain this?" asked Ambassador Veltar of the Ethereal Syndicate, showing new data. "Our long-range sensors detect that human consciousness is now networked across quantum space. Your people can perceive events thousands of light years away in real time. You know things about our civilizations that we have never shared with anyone." Rebecca could not deny this. Since the awakening began, human intelligence services had been receiving reports that seemed impossible. Human operators were accurately predicting alien political developments, economic changes, and even natural disasters on worlds they had never visited. Agent Maria Santos had briefed Rebecca just that morning about a human trader who had warned a ethereal syndicate colony about an impending earthquake 3 days before their own seismologists detected any signs of geological instability. The trader could not explain how she knew, only that she had felt it in her dreams. "We are as surprised by these developments as you are," Rebecca said. "Humanity is undergoing changes that we do not fully understand ourselves." "That makes it worse, not better," said Ambassador Kilneth of the Spiral Federation. "An enemy we can understand and negotiate with is preferable to guardians who act according to impulses they cannot explain." The word guardians hung in the air like a threat. The aliens had clearly reached the same conclusion that human scientists were beginning to accept. Humanity was becoming something that had watched over the galaxy for millions of years. Back on Mars, Lieutenant Colonel Susan Wright was experiencing the confrontation through the quantum network that now connected all human consciousness. She could feel the fear and anger of the alien ambassadors as clearly as if she were standing in the council chambers. "Betty, they are going to vote for military action," Susan said to Dr. Betty Clark, who was still studying the awakening phenomenon. "I can sense their decision forming before they even realize it themselves." Betty looked at her readings. "The quantum network is allowing you to perceive their collective unconscious. You are seeing their intentions before they reach their conscious minds." "We need to warn Earth," Susan said, but she realized it was unnecessary. Every human in the galaxy was sharing the same awareness. Admiral Rebecca Stone knew exactly what was happening in the council chambers, even though she was sitting right there. The military buildup had already begun. Corvin Empire battle fleets were moving toward human space under the cover of routine patrol missions. The Ethereal Syndicate was mobilizing their reality manipulation technology, weapons that could alter the fundamental laws of physics in localized space. General Claire Adams received reports from human intelligence that painted a picture of coordinated alien military preparation. 47 species, many of whom had never worked together before, were uniting against the perceived human threat. "They are more afraid of us than we are of them," Claire told the Emergency Defense Council. "Every species in the galaxy has legends about the Watchers, and they all describe beings of immense power who could appear anywhere and change the course of history with a thought. But we are not like that," protested Captain Lisa Morgan. "We are still human. We still need ships and weapons and all the same things we needed before." "Are we?" asked Dr. Amy Carter, who had been studying the psychological changes in awakened humans. "Lisa, when was the last time you felt truly surprised by anything? When did you last make a decision without knowing exactly how it would turn out?" Lisa paused, realizing that Amy was right. Since the awakening, every choice felt like following a path that was already laid out. Every action seemed to be part of a larger pattern that she could sense but not fully understand. Commander Nancy Foster reported similar experiences from her ship. "We changed course yesterday to avoid what looked like empty space," she told the council via quantum communication. 6 hours later, a Corvan battle fleet arrived at the coordinates we had been heading for. If we had not changed course, we would have been in the middle of their formation." "How did you know to change course?" Claire asked. "I did not know. I just felt like we should go a different direction. It seemed like the right thing to do. The aliens were right to be afraid. Humans were developing abilities that bordered on precognition. They could sense danger before it manifested, predict decisions before they were made, and always seemed to be in exactly the right place at the right time. The confrontation reached its peak when the Galactic Council voted to demand that humanity submit to genetic and technological monitoring to ensure they posed no threat to galactic stability. The vote was unanimous among the non-human species. Rebecca Stone stood before the council and delivered humanity's response. "We respectfully decline your monitoring demands. Humanity has never posed a threat to any species in this galaxy, and we will not submit to restrictions based on fear of what we might become." "Then you leave us no choice," Ambassador Threx announced. "The combined fleets of the Galactic Council will enforce compliance through military action if necessary." As he spoke those words, every human in the galaxy felt a pulse of shared awareness. Susan Wright on Mars, Nancy Foster in her ship, Lisa Morgan on Earth, and hundreds of thousands of other humans suddenly shared the same vision. They saw the alien fleets moving toward human space, armed with weapons designed to contain or destroy the quantum consciousness that humanity was developing. But they also saw something else, something the aliens could not detect with their conventional sensors. The approaching darkness from outside the galaxy was closer than anyone had realized. The entity that had consumed other galaxies was already at the edge of their own, and it would reach inhabited space within months, not years. "They are making a mistake," Susan said to Betty as they watched the alien fleet movements through the quantum network. "They are uniting against us just when we need to work together against the real threat." Betty checked her readings and found quantum signatures at the galactic edge that matched the descriptions from the Valix records. "Susan, you are right. The extragalactic entity is already here. It is just moving slowly as it consumes the outer star systems." Commander Nancy Foster discovered that her ship's instruments could detect traces of the approaching threat, but only because her awakened consciousness could interpret sensor data in ways that were previously impossible. "The entity is not just destroying stars," she reported. "It is consuming the quantum substrate that connects all life in the galaxy. When it finishes, the network that allows consciousness to exist will be gone." The human government realized they were facing a two-front crisis. The alien alliance was preparing to attack humanity out of fear, while the real threat approached undetected from galactic edge. Captain Lisa Morgan made a decision that would change everything. She activated the quantum communication network that connected all awakened humans and spoke to them as one voice. "Every human in the galaxy needs to understand what we are facing," she said. "We are not becoming the enemy of galactic civilization. We are becoming its last hope." Through the network, every human could suddenly see what Lisa saw. The approaching darkness that would consume all life, the alien fleets moving toward human space in ignorance of the real threat, and the choice that humanity would have to make. They could use their new abilities to defend themselves against the alien attack, or they could try to warn the galaxy about the approaching extinction and hope that fear could be overcome by the need for survival. Admiral Rebecca Stone looked around. The council chambers at the alien ambassadors who were planning humanity's containment or destruction. "Ambassadors, you are about to make the greatest mistake in galactic history. While you prepare to fight us, something is approaching that will destroy us all." "We will not be deceived by human lies," Threx replied. Rebecca closed her eyes and reached out through the quantum network to every human in the galaxy. "Then we will have to show you the truth, whether you want to see it or not." Admiral Rebecca Stone stood in the Galactic Council chambers and reached out through the quantum network that connected every human consciousness across the galaxy. What happened next had never been attempted before in the history of any known civilization. Every human alive focused their awakened awareness toward the edge of the galaxy where the darkness was approaching. Lieutenant Colonel Susan Wright on Mars, Commander Nancy Foster in her ship, Captain Lisa Morgan on Earth, and hundreds of thousands of others joined their consciousness into a single, massive perception field. The aliens in the council chambers felt it first as a whisper in their minds, then as a growing pressure that they could not ignore. Against their will, they began to see through human eyes, to perceive the galaxy through the quantum network that humanity had become part of. Ambassador Zyra 4 of the Neth Collective screamed as her crystalline consciousness was suddenly flooded with visions of galactic destruction. She could see the approaching entity as clearly as if it were in the same room, a wave of absolute nothingness that consumed stars and planets, leaving behind empty space where reality itself had been erased. "This is impossible," growled Ambassador Threx of the Corvan Empire, but his voice was shaking as he witnessed the death of entire solar systems at the galaxy's edge. "Our sensors detect nothing unusual in that region." Dr. Amy Carter, still working with the Valix records back on Earth, found the answer to why alien technology could not detect the threat. "The entity exists partially outside normal space-time," she told the Emergency Council through quantum communication. "It can only be perceived by consciousness that operates in quantum dimensions. That is why the original Watchers evolved beyond physical existence. Through the forced connection, the alien ambassadors could see the Valix records as clearly as any human. They witnessed the ancient civilization's terror as they realized they were being hunted by something that existed beyond their ability to detect or understand. The Watchers tried to fight it in physical form and failed, Amy continued. That is why they evolved into pure consciousness. It was the only way to survive. Ambassador Veltar of the Ethereal Syndicate was experiencing the quantum connection with growing horror. If this entity cannot be fought with physical weapons, then how can it be stopped? The answer came from the Valix records, translated through the combined consciousness of every human linguist and scientist working together through the quantum network. Dr. Betty Clark, monitoring the process from Mars, watched as human awareness processed information at speeds that individual minds could never achieve. The entity can be contained, Betty announced to both humans and aliens through the connection. But it requires a barrier made of pure consciousness, maintained by beings who exist in both physical and quantum dimensions simultaneously. General Tibika, Claire Adams understood the implication immediately. The original Watchers could not maintain such a barrier because they gave up physical existence. But humans can operate in both realms. The alien ambassadors found themselves experiencing human memories and emotions through the quantum link. They felt the confusion and fear that humans had experienced during the awakening, but also the determination and sense of responsibility that was driving them to accept their new role. "You want us to trust you to become our guardians," Ambassador Kilneth of the Spiral Federation said through the connection. "But how do we know you will not abuse this power?" The answer came not in words but in shared experience. Every alien in the council chambers suddenly felt what it was like to be human during the awakening. They experienced the overwhelming sense of responsibility, the constant awareness of every life in the galaxy, and the burden of knowing that action or inaction could affect entire civilizations. Susan Wright, still connected to the network from Mars, shared her most recent vision with the entire council. "We do not want this power," she said. "Every human who has awakened can feel the weight of every decision, the consequences of every action rippling across the galaxy. It is not a gift. It is a responsibility that we cannot refuse." Commander Nancy Foster added her perspective from her ship at the galaxy's edge. "I can see 3 alien colonies that will be consumed by the entity within the next few days unless we act now. Not human colonies. Alien worlds that have never had any contact with humanity. But I feel responsible for them because I am the only one who can see the danger approaching." The shared consciousness allowed the aliens to feel the truth of human intentions. There was no desire for conquest or control, only an overwhelming compulsion to protect life wherever it existed. Captain Lisa Morgan took control of the network from Earth. "The entity will reach the core worlds within 6 months, she announced. "We can stop it, but only if we work together. Humanity needs to fully awaken to create the consciousness barrier, and the galaxy's civilizations need to provide the physical infrastructure to support us." Dr. Amy Carter had found the technical details in the Valix records. "The barrier requires consciousness anchors on worlds throughout the galaxy," she explained. "Physical structures that can channel quantum awareness and maintain the barrier against the entity's advance." "How many structures?" asked Ambassador Zira 4. "Every inhabited world in the galaxy," Amy replied. "The barrier must surround the entire entity to contain it. Any gap will allow it to break through and continue its advance." The scope of the undertaking was staggering. 47 different species would need to work together to build identical structures on thousands of worlds, all coordinated through human quantum consciousness that most of them still feared and distrusted. "There is another option," said Admiral Rebecca Stone quietly. "We could follow the path of the original Watchers. Humanity could evolve beyond physical existence and become pure consciousness capable of containing the entity without requiring physical anchors." The aliens felt a wave of relief through the connection, but it was immediately followed by something else. Every human in the galaxy shared the same vision of what would happen if they chose transcendence. Betty Clark described what she was seeing through her instruments. "If humanity abandons physical existence, the quantum network that connects all galactic life will become unstable within a few generations. Consciousness requires both physical and quantum components to maintain itself permanently." "You mean the galaxy would eventually lose all intelligent life anyway?" Ambassador Threx said. "Not immediately," Susan Wright replied. "But within a 1,000 years, yes. The network would decay and consciousness would fade from the galaxy. Every species would gradually lose sentience and revert to animal-level awareness. The choice was becoming clear to everyone in the connection. Humanity could sacrifice themselves to stop the immediate threat, but doom the galaxy to eventual extinction. Or they could remain physical while maintaining quantum awareness, protecting the galaxy permanently, but requiring the cooperation and trust of every other species. General Claire Adams coordinated the human response through the network. "We choose to remain," she announced. "Humanity will accept the role of permanent guardians. But we need your help to build the consciousness anchors." The alien response was not immediate. The ambassadors withdrew from the forced connection and huddled with their respective species representatives. Hours passed while alien governments debated the unprecedented decision to trust their future to a species they had been preparing to attack. Meanwhile, the entity continued its advance. Nancy Foster reported that 2 more star systems had been consumed while the debate continued. The approaching darkness was not waiting for galactic politics to reach a conclusion. Ambassador Zira 4 was the first to speak when the council reconvened. "The Neth Collective will provide construction support for the consciousness anchors," she announced. "Our crystal-growing technology can create the quantum-resonant structures described in the Valix records." One by one, the other species added their commitments. The Corvan Empire would provide military protection during construction. The Ethereal Syndicate would contribute their reality manipulation technology to stabilize the quantum fields. The Spiral Federation would coordinate logistics across their vast trade networks. Within days, the greatest construction project in galactic history was underway. On every inhabited world, alien and human engineers worked together to build structures that would channel human consciousness into a protective barrier spanning thousands of light years. Susan Wright stood in the control room of the Mars Consciousness Anchor and felt the network coming online. Each completed structure added to the growing web of awareness that was spreading across the galaxy. "I can feel every world, every species, every individual consciousness," she told Betty, who was monitoring the process. "But it is not overwhelming anymore. It feels like coming home." Captain Lisa Morgan coordinated the final activation from Earth. As the last consciousness anchor came online, every human in the galaxy joined their awareness into a single, massive presence that surrounded the approaching entity. The barrier held. The entity struck the consciousness field and could not pass through. For the first time in its existence across multiple galaxies, it had encountered something that could resist its advance, but containment was not destruction. The entity remained at the galaxy's edge, pressing against the barrier, looking for weaknesses. The humans who maintained the consciousness field could feel its alien hunger, its drive to consume all life and energy. "This is permanent," Nancy Foster reported from her position at the barrier's edge. "The entity will never stop trying to break through. We will need to maintain this barrier forever." Admiral Rebecca Stone addressed the Galactic Council one final time. "Humanity accepts the role of eternal guardians," she said. "We will watch over the galaxy and protect it from threats both internal and external. But we are no longer the same species we were before. We are something new, something that exists in both physical and quantum dimensions." The aliens looked at the humans around them and realized that they were no longer looking at another species. They were looking at the galaxy's protectors, beings who had sacrificed their simple humanity to become something greater and more responsible. Ambassador Threx spoke for all the alien species when he said, "We understand now why our ancestors called you the First Watchers. You were never conquerors or manipulators. You were always our guardians, even when you did not know it yourselves." The transformation was complete. Humanity had awakened to their true purpose and accepted the burden that came with cosmic awareness. The galaxy was safe, protected by conscious beings who could act in the physical world while maintaining the quantum perception necessary to detect and contain threats from beyond normal space-time. But as Susan Wright stood watching the stars from Mars, she knew that this was not an ending. It was a beginning. Somewhere in the vast universe beyond their galaxy, other entities like the one they had contained were still moving between the stars, consuming civilizations that had no guardians to protect them. Humanity had saved their galaxy, but the universe was full of other galaxies that might need the same protection. The responsibility they had accepted was not just galactic, but cosmic in scope. The first Watchers had returned, and they would never rest again.